I'm Leroy Huff, and this is my son Stefan Torreos Huff. And Stefan is 18. He just turned 18 in June.
I'm Debbie LePan.
Steve LePan.
And we are the parents of Trent LePan.
How old is
he? He is 10. He will be 11 in September.
That makes me so tired.
That's a good thing. We like that.
Well, when Steph was born, he was fine. At the 3-month point, after he got his inoculations, because he was born while I was stationed in Germany, he had a reaction to the pertussis virus.
Well,
we've had like 31 foster children.
We knew that his birth mom and his grandmother were both bipolar, so we knew that that was a very strong possibility. But that was about all. The autism and the other things was surprised when he turned about 18 months. He started having seizures.
And then shortly after the inoculations, well, then's when we realized that something was wrong. There was this blank stare, and he'd stare right through you, just...
Quit smiling, quit talking, and didn't talk again until he was 4.
He went backwards instead of forwards. You know, the little milestones you're marking in the child. His brain is the same size now as when he was 6 months old. He's labeled with cerebral palsy and epilepsy. He's incontinent. He doesn't walk. He makes a great stride sometimes at trying to talk. You know, he'll let you know he's in the room.
At 18 months, he was well ahead of all the other children on the bell curve. And at 18 months, he just stopped.
He is autistic, fetal alcohol, epileptic,
eosinophilic esophagitis,
asthmatic, bipolar, Tourette's.
Eosinophils, the white blood cells in his throat, actually swell up, and they close off his airway, and it causes him to choke and vomit and several times a day. Even now, you know, in our bed, you know, we'll end up waking up in the middle of the night because, you know, he's vomited. You gotta get up and clean him up, change his sheets. You know,
Scrape out his mouth.
It's like a way of life now. It's just part of the territory. Trent's 11 years old, sharing a bed with us, and I mean, you can't leave him alone.
Emotionally, cognitively, he's probably 5. And he hides when he's scared or...
The Medicaid waiver program is a system in the state of Virginia that's designed to offer non-institutional care for persons with mental retardation or intellectual disabilities. They, of course, have to meet a diagnostic eligibility, functional skills assessment. They have to be able to qualify for Medicaid services. And it provides an array of services to help people avoid institutionalization. And the types of services that we offer range from anything from residential services to day support or day programs, all the way to environmental modifications to assist someone, and great services that somebody can have if they have the waiver.
So we put in for the MR waiver. It was approved. And then it was a process of about 2 years, roughly.
And how long have you been?
3 years trying to get it.
Waiting?
Waiting.
Okay.
One of the very first things that we were happy to do is Stefan started getting too large to go on in my vehicle. His head, you had to tilt the chair all the way back to get him in the truck. So I needed to have my van modified. So I had to have a high top put on and then an 8-inch extensions done on the doors so that when I was putting him in the van, that, you know, he wasn't beating his head all up. The waiver program took care of that for me, which that was a godsend. He got a new pair of glasses in April. You know, I've been putting out $300 or $400 every other year to get new glasses or have them changed out or such. We've since allowed more things now that he's been on the waiver and he got the Medicaid through the state. It's allowed them to pick up the co-pays that I had with my primary insurance for him. He's on TRICARE through the military system, and anytime he sees any of his civilian doctors, I had a copay, which I can get them to take care of that. What TRICARE won't cover when it comes to equipment, what's left over, I have them to go, so it's helped financially tremendously.
His therapy would be a total of $600 a week for his therapies, and there's no way you could do that. Plus, almost $700 for the prescriptions and the deductibles for the doctors, and one package of pull-ups every 2 or 3 days. You can't do it. It's impossible to do it. Steve has a good job. He has insurance, but you take away $1,000 a month out of your paycheck, and that's just for life sustaining. That's not to teach your son how to feed himself without spilling everything or being able to chew with his mouth shut. And things where you can take him to a regular restaurant without people turning around looking at you. That's not counting all of the other things that would be really nice, like a babysitter, so we could go out for dinner someday. You can't do it.
If you don't have the waiver in Virginia, you're not going to get all of those services, and primarily what you're going to be able to get as a citizen residing in our catchment area would be case management services and our emergency services.
In Michigan, what we were used to seeing to get the Medicaid, the waivers for the medical coverage on that, the doctor says, yes, this child is disabled, these are his diagnoses, I recommend. You take this paper down, you give it to the lady, she says, oh, okay, no problem, she signs the paperwork. 2-3 weeks later, somebody calls up, says, your first delivery of pull-ups will be here, your card's in the mail, blah, 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 blah.
And it was
awesome. That's what we were expecting, here. When we went to the doctor, all the diagnoses were spelled out, we had all these papers, and we just thought we'd, turn them in. Well, we turned them in, and
it's not the way it works here.
That's not the way it works.
What did they tell you?
That, he was turned down because he was not severe enough.
Not severe enough.
He would not qualify for nursing home.
The case manager has been a godsend to me. I'm a single parent, and I've been blessed tremendously by having her help me out there.
Lee is a very particular and meticulous dad. He's taken great care of this child, and he wants to make sure that anything that can enrich his life is available to him, and he's worked very hard to see that happens.
He's thrived being at home versus becoming a ward of the state and being put in a facility somewhere. Yeah, you agree too, huh?
It's a series of hoops you have to jump through, and you have to have, it's like when you go to the circus, you have to have a ringleader to tell you what hoop you jump through at what time, and when it needs to be jumped through.
Because if you jump through the wrong hoop at the wrong time, you have to start all over.
Yeah, you're all done. You get to start all over again. So that's where Susan comes in. Susan is our ringleader. She calls us up and she says, okay, this is what you have to do now. These are the things you have to get. These are the documents you have to have. These are the forms you need to fill out, and they need to be done at this time. And then when you get all these done, she says, okay, that's great. You've got through this hoop. Your next hoop it has to be done by this time. These are the forms you need. These are the papers you got to have.
Otherwise, we would just be chasing our tail.
Yeah.
Without Susan,
Trent is such a challenging child, and he has parents who are so dedicated and so competent with him.
This is his favorite thing.
But all the help in the world is not there for them, and they need so much support.
He has Tourette-type outbreaks where he just starts screaming. And it doesn't even have to make any sense. It's just very loud, very shrill screaming.
Department stores kind of look at you funny when you start screaming in the store.
Now
or
that
in
he's
church.
now that he's getting bigger and a little stockier, a little stronger, it's a little more difficult for Debbie to restrain him. He does get angry, and he will lash out, just like a 2 or 3 year old who has a little temper tantrum. only it's an 11-year-old with 11-year-old strength and 4.5 foot,
110 pounds. It's
having a 2-year-old temper tantrum.
What'd you name him?
Gilbert.
Turn around, look at
Say hi.
Hi,
What's your kitty's name?
Gilbert.
Gilbert.
You have a combination here of two wonderful parents with a lot of love who are very, very well trained, and yet they're being crushed because they don't have the assistance they need.
We have had training. We have trained other parents. And, we're supposed to be the people who have the answers. We're supposed to be the people that are set up for this kind of thing. And, if we're this overwhelmed, if we're this befuddled, if we're completely lost in the system somewhere and having all this, what are these parents doing out there that don't have this training?
I can see how a single mother with 2 or 3 children who have fetal alcohol or who have bipolar, and the mother has bipolar, or something. They would end up in the system. They would end up in foster care. There's absolutely no way they could do it. And if they could get the medical waivers or the MR waivers or Medicaid or some kind of services and help, if it was easier, there would probably be less children in foster care. There would be less children lost in the system. They would be able to do better in school. There would be less children in prison because they've been able to succeed in school and throughout. I don't think, unless you live here, unless you live this and see it every day, you don't understand what it's like. You can't understand what the medical bills are like for 17 prescriptions plus 15 doctors and specialists, and you don't understand what it is, what you have to, the choices you have to make. And sometimes it's whether you have beans and rice and you get the prescription, or you have an actual meal and don't have the prescriptions. I mean, sometimes it's...
So everybody pays.
And
Everybody get wet?
at one point, Steve and I had actually considered doing a separation so he could get Social Security, so he could get the therapies and the support that he needs to be able to function.
It's a hard decision to make.
It is. But when it comes to your son, your child, you do what you have to do.
Sounds like you don't have any choices.
You don't.